Hello everyone, and welcome to the first little video of the Unicorn Painter. Today we're taking a look at my journey to 11th edition, where I'm taking a lot of Sisters of Battle, built around mostly 3 times the original control battle box. I don't know what they called it originally when they released it. But here you can take a quick look at what I'm running, which for this batch of painting that I'm gonna be showing you, it's around 1090 points as a good solid basis for the beginning of my army. I'm like getting all the boring stuff like kind of done before I can just focus on the super different thingies like Repentia and Arcoflagellants and the kind of more unique units from the army. The baseline of recipe that I'm following here is from Matters Miniatures, who made an amazing tutorial on how to paint Morvenball that I used as the basis for this army, with quite a few changes and adding a lot more of the details that, you know, when you paint an army you don't encounter with compared to a single miniature. But I want to be like a reasonable person and credit the biggest inspiration that I had for this. Is it a very practical scheme? Not really. Is it an amazing looking color in the end? Oh my god, yes it is. We're gonna use some evergreen fog, something like that, and Halo Blue extremely thin down to create the shadows on the deeper parts of the clothing and the armor. But for now, you can take a look at the first step of the whole army painting complete, and a little bit more in-depth look at what I'm taking. I've always struggled a little bit with Sister of Battle because this is my third attempt at painting this army in a way that I enjoy. So here you can see I'm trying to apply the mix of mossy green and blue gray in a more directional manner to establish some proper highlight and more of the fall off of that light. Not directly zenithal, but like sort of high up. In this case, the army, it's some stuff that was left over from my previous attempts, in which I converted the Imagifier and the Canoness a little bit. The unit of Retributors had been stripped out of paint like 3 times as far as I remember, maybe 4, and it had a lot of texture buildup, so I used that for extra griminess in their armor. For all the leather and wood, I went with Satchel Brown, which is a lovely speed paint color. I thinned it just a little bit to go to flow really nicely. After all the brown is done, I decided that for anything that was going to be either black or would need to be painted silver later, I would start with like a green black undercoat, and using the highlights that were already created with the airbrushing of the different previous steps, it would give us already like a really nice look for anything that is simply black, and a good base for metallics after. For this step, I ended up going for a really big brush, so I could have like a lot of speed paint loaded into it, and it will flow really smoothly without like drying up or blotching or anything as I was painting. so many different things. It's not that hard to control where it goes. So this is your not so friendly reminder to actually wear a proper mask or respirator and use oils in a ventilated room. Here I'm using burnt umber and ivory black, diluted a lot with simply mineral spirits. I didn't have sans odor or anything else, so we just did what we could. But please wear a respirator, even if you look as silly as I did here. It's not the most comfortable thing in the world, but your lungs will thank you later, or at least don't give you any poisonous buildup in them. It's the best idea possible to get an army like this going all at the same time. No. There is in this batch too many different units with different types of armor. Like some have skin, some don't. So I feel like some have more details, some don't. And you even have like the penitent engines, which are really not the same design language as all the other miniatures in the army. So it was a fight against like, okay, what do I need to do and what steps I can replicate in all the miniatures at the same time. So we had a bit of a time with all of this, I'm not going to lie. In the case of oils, I opted to remove more of the oil for anything that was like clothes and leave the armors a bit more grimdark. Grimdark is a silly word at this point because like people use it for everything, but like we left more grime in that armor. After all of that, I decided to tackle the metallics with a more desaturated look, 2 parts death metal to tainted gold. And here you can see all the other details already filled in. I painted the metallics with gunmetal. We did a mix of bony matter and skeleton horde for anything that is parchment or skulls. We decided to use some aqua alchemy to create the effect of heavily oxidized gold or bronze in this case. It's extremely diluted with speed paint medium and airbrush thinner. And here with the same airbrush thinner, I diluted a little bit of strong tone to create a nice weathered look on anything that was metallic, like it was used and properly maintained, opposite to the more decorative aspects. Using some dark coat flash to create the base coat for anything that's going to be skin on the scissors, and then brown rose, barbarian flesh, and some ice yellow in a progressively lighter way to create the highlights and establish the features of the scissors. I'm not a very good painter of faces, so I struggled a little bit with this step, and it had many redos and retries. But at the end of the day, it's just about practice. I really enjoyed getting some with these minis. For the hair, I used some rattling grime, and as you can see me here, I used it to reinforce anything that was like dark, but I didn't want it to be black, you know. So the ribbing and the corset, like the extra texture on the tassels. in order to create like an interesting basing scheme, I went through like a different few iterations, but ended up going with the same color that I used for the chipping in the armor, which is burgundy brown. Through the airbrush, I added then after a little bit of a bone color to highlight the edges with it, like a mix of 50-50 of both of them. And then I proceeded to dilute some satchel brown with speed paint medium and airbrush thinner to create a really saturated in hue but not like an intensity shade, so I could like homogenize the colors and create like a more desaturated look in the end without making it look like more pastel or anything like that. After most of the other details in the miniature are done, I diluted some black miniature paint to start scrolling down everything that was like tags or like the little incantations in the purity seals, the scrolls, anything that would have been like written in the miniature. I tried to recreate that look and just spend a lot of time doing it so it would look neat, at least as neat as I was aiming for this army. And as with any good grimdark army, you know, it has to have a little bit or a lot of blood added to it. So in this case, I use a mix of dry blood and true blood for army painter to create more the shiny and newer blood splatters. Meanwhile, I use a diluted version of the dry blood to create like the effects of like a really cold tap blood in anywhere that was like older or had already dried up or has never been cleaned off. And after that, you know, just finish the ribs of your pieces and here you go. So if you're interested in seeing a more in-depth showcase of the army, just wait for it, it's coming. For now, it's just like a rumbling of my brain while I was working on this. But until then, if you could find the time to give me a like and subscribe to the channel, I would really appreciate it. So, I'll see you in the next one.